welcome to our new series of webinars designed to help you navigate your way through some of the mental health issues linked to lockdown. I'm Gillian Nissim and I'm the founder of Workingmums.co.uk. As well as a job site that offers part-time and full-time flexible jobs, we're a community site providing parents and employers with advice and support and sharing best practice. Specifically, at the moment, we're focused on delivering advice and support to help parents and employers navigate the challenges of lockdown. Today, I'm delighted to introduce Dr. Amanda Gummer, child psychologist and founder of goodplayguide.com, a site dedicated to promoting the value of play in healthy childhoods. We've invited Amanda to help answer some of your questions and address your concerns about your child's well-being during lockdown. So welcome, Amanda. And kicking off with a big question, I'd be really interested to know what you think are the main challenges facing children during this long-term lockdown.
So I think there's the obvious ones. They're missing their friends and their wider family. I think you know, that physical contact, that interaction, face-to-face, interpersonal interaction is so important for children's social and emotional development. So that's obviously a massive challenge. I think one of the less obvious ones is the kind of family dynamics. We very rarely spend this much time in the same place as our children, and maybe with toddlers more so, but certainly by the time children get to school age, that intensity of the relationship where you're in the same place 24/7, you know, 7 days a week and more, that's a challenge. Doesn't matter how much we love people, we still need a break from them every now and again, and that goes for the kids as much as it does for us. And then there's the learning, obviously, the school, the lack of school and the missing school and that regular routine. I think a lot of children thrive on a routine and knowing what they're doing and knowing how what their week looks like. So I think a lot of them are missing that to a certain extent too. So I'd say they were the three main challenges.
And that I guess makes sense. I mean, it's such a change in the whole family dynamic. I mean, it's such a readjustment for everybody. I mean, what would you say are the main stress points, and what can we do to help minimise them?
So I think there's differences between families who are working from home and trying to keep a job going and managing to sort of balance that work and family life versus parents who aren't working because they've been furloughed or are full-time home parents anyway. So I think if you're looking at the working parent situation, I think the stress points are often with children feeling a bit rejected when their parents aren't able to give them all the time and attention they want to play the games or to do the fun stuff. I think there are times when the parents' anxieties around job security, money, health of family members, that can you know, when that rises up, kids pick up on that, and I think that can cause flashpoints. And then there's just the fact that we're all in the same house, we're making more mess, we're eating more food, we're, you know, creating more washing. So the actual chores, the domestic chores have increased, and I think in a way that maybe we didn't appreciate first, but certainly the kids don't appreciate. And that kind of trying to make sure everybody feels like they're all in it together. But when the dishwasher does need emptying again, or when there is a pile of washing that needs doing, the parents can feel, I think parents and children can find that as a bit of a flashpoint. Certainly has been in my house.
I can relate to that too. It's divide and conquer, I guess. It's challenging. And I think, you know, I mean, we're all concerned when we've got kids of all ages, and you know, we're, I suppose, monitoring them a little bit more closely, but what, in terms of kind of mental well-being, should we be looking out for and or be concerned about?
So children, when they are in a period of stress and anxiety, often regress. So it's not unusual and it's not a problem if they do, but one of the telltale signs that they're not feeling 100%. And this can be because they're feeling poorly or because they're tired or whatever, but it's also something that happens when they're stressed and worried, is they go back to the kind of familiar toys. So things that you might have thought they'd grown out of, they might suddenly go back to and spend hours playing with a Sylvanian Families or a Playmobil set that they'd maybe not played with for quite a while. So all soft toys, or even watching films that they used to watch, or TV programs that they used to watch when they were younger. All of that is perfectly normal, and it's a coping strategy. If it goes too far or goes on too long, then that's a time to raise some alarms. So there's that. Shortness of temper, but I think that's the same for all of us. When we're all a little bit on edge, our tempers we're not as patient. So, but just be aware of those flashpoints with the siblings. Bear in mind that there are likely to be a few more arguments because just the fact that they're spending more time together. So try and let them resolve those themselves where possible. But again, if that's something that seems to be getting out of control, that can be an early warning sign that things aren't as they should be. And a certain amount of anxiety over the current situation and the uncertainty is perfectly normal. And what kids really need there is for you to empathise and understand that, validate their feelings, explain that you have the same sorts of feelings, you're a bit anxious and worried, but without it being a case of you putting the adult worries onto little shoulders. But if they're asking questions about COVID-19, about why they can't see granny, why they can't see their friends, try and answer it as simply and as honestly as you can, because you want them to come to you for advice. You don't want them surfing the internet or kind of asking their friends for advice, which will be much less reliable.
Yeah, and probably, I guess, as parents, we may be able to explain it in a way they can relate to better than reading something cold.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, absolutely. And it's a really good technique is to just answer the question that you're asked really simply, and then ask them if that's answered the question, and give them a chance to ask another one if they need more clarification. I think especially with sort of children under sort of 6 or 7, if we go with the young children, there's a tendency to over explain things to them and they switch off. So just give them a very sort of short, simple answer to their question, and wait for them to ask another question if they want more information. I think too much information can actually be counterproductive for them.
No, that's brilliant. That's really helpful. Thank you. And I think the other thing, that's probably playing through all our minds actually is what we can do in the longer term and as parents to ensure mental well-being, not just for the kind of here and now, but longer term as well. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think if there is something, the one of the positives to come out of this is that sort of family attachment, those that communication and bringing the family unit together. And as tricky as that can be at sometimes, if you're able to create those family traditions, and whether it's you discover a new family recipe together, or you find a new favourite film that you all enjoy watching, or a box set, or a game that you play, and just creating those family traditions, really good for the kids' sense of belonging. And if they feel like they belong to a family, they won't go and seek that sense of belonging from elsewhere. So you're at much lower risk of them going and joining gangs or getting into the wrong friendship group if they feel safe and secure at home. So using this time to lay down some traditions, make some memories, create some routines or things that are just special to your family is a really good opportunity for you to do that now. But it can be something that you can carry on from now on, and that can really help children with their social and emotional well-being, because they know what they do in their family. This is what we do here. This is how we do Sunday lunch. This is how we do pizza night. This is how we do, this is what we do when we play these kind of games. These are the songs that we listen to when we are, hoovering the carpets, or whatever it is. There's stuff that you can do that, if you make those patterns, that really reinforces that sense of belonging. And the kids really like that, being part of the family and being a valued part of the family. So one of the other things I'd suggest is getting them more involved in the running of the household. So maybe things like sorting out what the meal is, or writing a shopping list for somebody to go shopping with, and you know, learning to budget, learning how the washing machine works, learning how to iron, learning how to clean the silver or the windows or whatever it is. Those kind of skills that they're learning, not the academic home learning so much as the life skills, that really boosts their self-confidence. And if they can then be trusted to be the person who takes the bins out or who unloads the dishwasher or whatever, they are then feeling more of a valued member of the family. And they may, you know, it may be a bit of a battle to get them to do it initially, but actually giving them that responsibility and praising them and listening to them and hearing their opinions on things that affect the whole family will really boost their self-esteem and their confidence, and again, really good buffers for mental health issues down the line.
Well, I think that's brilliant, and that, I mean, that applies across ages as well. I mean, I think of my teenagers, and you know, really starting to get much more into cooking and practical things, which is really helpful generally. But actually, yeah, the life skills, and yeah, maybe slightly begrudgingly unloading the dishwasher, but they're doing it. So, yeah, so that's great. We've had some questions in from our audience too, Amanda. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to fire away with some of those too. And the first one is, how should I talk to my kids about their fears around coronavirus? I'm not sure what they understand, but they have picked up on some of it. They're 5 and 3 years old. So I guess it relates to what you've been speaking a little bit about.
Yeah, so when they're that age, it can be difficult because they pick up on things without necessarily having the social or emotional or cognitive development to be able to really understand it in the way that we do. So making it sort of accessible to them can be quite difficult. So again, that simple, honest explanation. It's a virus. Viruses are, you know, they come in through your nose and your mouth, which is why we're washing our hands and not touching our faces, and all of those kind of things is fairly straightforward for kids at that age. I don't think you need to talk about global pandemics to kids at that age, and I don't think you need to talk to them about, you know, the economy or job losses or anything like that. It's just, you know, it's about keeping clean and staying safe, and I think that's the general message for kids at that age. But again, let them know that they can ask any questions and that you will try and answer them. And then if they ask you a question that you don't know, go and find it out together, especially with older kids. You know, go online and look at what the evidence says, look at what the science is, see if you can get sort of a bit more knowledge about it. Knowledge is a really good way, or it's a really good antidote to anxiety. When you feel like you're in control, when you feel like you know what the score is and you know what you're doing, you have that agency, and that again really good for reducing anxiety and positive mental health. So giving kids that control over some of the content that they're listening to, and making sure that, you know, they can evaluate fake news and realize what the truth is and what the science says, and why it's, you know, why it's important to wash your hands, what soap does to the virus, all of that kind of stuff. There's quite a lot of resources out there around talking to kids about this, so including some nice videos and some, you know, diagrams and memes around. So yeah, maybe use some of those to help if you're finding it difficult to get the words right.
Thank you, and I guess that leads on to you know, how you help kids cope in a situation where someone close to them has died, if they're very young. We've had a question in, you know, a close relative has died of coronavirus, and I don't know how to talk to them about it, and they get very upset seeing me upset. I mean, what would you suggest in a situation like that?
So grief is a normal emotion, it's a natural, and death is a part of life, and children will be facing that, you know, possibly more now than in normal life, but throughout life, you know, we have bereavements and periods of grief. So being able to be honest about the fact that you are sad and why you're sad, and the fact that you're going to miss the relative that's died, and that makes you very sad, that all helps the children feel that it's okay for them to be sad, and again helps try and talk to them about the person that you've lost and the memories that you've got, and try and create some happy remember the happy memories, and but don't try and hide your emotions from your kids on this, because they will end up bottling their emotions up, and again, that's not good for them. So you don't need to worry about the sort of stiff upper lip on this. It's fine for you to be sad, and talk to your kids about what you do to cheer yourself up when you're feeling sad, and what they can, so that what you're doing then is empowering them to do something similar. And as long as it's not, you know, opening the gym bottle or whatever, you're giving them opportunities to learn from how you deal with grief, so that they are better equipped to deal with it themselves. So, you know, whether it's going for a nice walk and, you know, finding a flower, or obviously social distancing protocols notwithstanding, but, you know, or maybe it's, you know, writing a letter, or drawing a picture, doing some colouring, something to take your mind off it, or some way to honour the memory of the relative that's died, you know, maybe drawing a picture of them, or maybe reading their favourite story, or something along those lines, just to help it be okay to talk about it. And that might be really difficult for you at this time, but actually, if you can do that for your kids, what you're doing is providing them with a model that will help them cope with grief.
Thank you. We've had loads of questions in on homeschooling, and this one is, what's the best way to encourage kids to learn if they don't want to? $1 million question.
Yeah, the approaches to homeschooling are varied, and I've heard, you know, everything from we're following the school timetable, you know, and that's their working day, and actually that works for some people who are trying to do work as well, because the kids are working on their stuff, mummy's working on her stuff, and after that's all done, 3:15 whatever, school stops and we have our evenings. That works if in some households. The majority of people I know who started that off with the best of intentions have given it up by now, because I think it feels a bit too rigid for the current situation. And I think it doesn't really allow for people to listen to their own internal sort of monologue and their own feelings, and go with the fact that some days their motivation is fine, and other days they're sort of struggling to get out of bed because this is all just so unknown and uncertain. So I think allowing a bit more flexibility can be good. I think kids definitely do like some element of routine, so certainly young children, keeping a regular pattern of some sort can be really helpful. But my biggest advice would be to make it fun. You know, learning through play is what kids do, and kids at secondary school will have their school, you know, they'll be on Google Classroom or whatever, they'll be being sent assignments, and they, by and large, they're able to get on with that themselves, and they have the teachers, you know, they're able to access the technology, the teachers are available to help them with questions. And I don't know about you guys, but by the time they were in secondary school, most of what they were learning was over my head anyway, so I'm not really much used to them there. Primary school kids, different matter. You know, their curriculum is much more generic and largely, you know, so they have their topics, but what we're trying to do is teach them to learn. So it doesn't really matter what you're teaching them. Those life skills are so important, but equally, if you can get them to learn to count, does it matter whether they're counting the leaves on the trees or the legs on a dinosaur, or, you know, the spokes on a wheel? That sort of stuff is just, it's about getting the learning into the play, rather than structuring, you know, this is now the maths hour, and this is now the English hour, and then we're going to do science. And because actually for parents, especially if you're working, that is incredibly labour intensive. If you've got older children, giving them a project to do, so sort of key stage 2 kids, giving them a project that they can do, again, largely independently, that they can then show and tell you at the end of each day or each week, and they can present to you what they've done. And maybe it's the research they've done online, maybe it's the model that they've made, maybe it's the theatre show that they've put on, or the story they've written. All of that kind of stuff can be really empowering. And one of my favourite ones is a newspaper. So get them to be a new newspaper editor. They can interview family members by Skype or, you know, video conference. They can draw their illustrations. They can make their own cartoon. They can create a puzzle or a game section. They can do something about sport in lockdown. They can write those different things. Some of it's written, some of it can be video blogs, those kind of things that the kids can actually do pretty independently, but gives them a bit of structure to their learning. But they'll learn the literacy, they'll learn the math, they'll learn the technology, and actually that will keep them engaged. And if you do it in a fun way, then you're likely to get a lot fewer battles and a much happier home. I should say that the Good Play Guide website's got a home learning hub with a load of free resources, perfectly accessible, all available. We're only sharing stuff that's free, so it's all. And we have been actually quite overwhelmed with how generous some of the ed tech providers and the kind of the normally sort of commercial companies are being in this challenging time. So there is an awful lot of resources available for kids to learn and to access. So make the most of that, and don't worry too much about the strict formal school-based learning. Use this as an opportunity to learn life skills and learn through play.
Brilliant, really great advice there. Thank you, Amanda. And a lot of us have that additional challenge of work as well, as you were mentioning earlier. And we've had one question in asking what you suggest if an employer isn't being very understanding and you're having to work during normal working hours and try and homeschool and be with the kids.
Yeah.
Help.
Yeah, you've got 3 jobs rolled into one, haven't you? You've got whatever your day job is, you've got teacher and you've got parent, and yeah, most people don't do 3 jobs full time, 7 days a week. So yeah, it can be a real challenge. I think the only thing you can do is talk to your employer. There are things like, if you look at the kind of sleep patterns and the routine of your family, maybe there's a way of altering your schedule a little bit. So either you get up earlier and before the kids, I've got teenagers, so it's very easy for me to get up early and get a load of work done before the kids get out of bed. But if you've got young kids, maybe it's the other way around and you end up doing some more work in the evening. Look at what work you can do whilst the kids are around. So desk work or computer work. If you need to be on phone calls and video conferencing and stuff, try and carve out a couple of hours during the day where maybe you do just put the kids in front of a film, or you set them up with something, and if they're able to leave you for a couple of hours, and a couple of hours if they're sort of 8 or 9 is doable, a couple of hours when they're 2 or 3, absolutely no chance. So cut the time frame to fit the age of the child. But if you can get them to, so that you can then tell your employer that you will definitely be available between 1 and 3 because you'll have had lunch, the kids can have a zone out screen time for a couple of hours, you get to do the bits you need to do, and then you can go back and spend some time with your kids, maybe picking up some of the rest of the work in the evening once they're in bed. Being a bit creative with that, trying to show your employer that you're sort of solution focused on this will help. But at the end of the day, and I'm not an employment lawyer, so you need to check all of this, but I believe you're able to ask to be furloughed. If you're unable to do your work because you have to be at home with the kids, I think that is grounds for being furloughed. So that might be your other option.
Brilliant, thank you, Amanda. And I guess, yes, I mean, it is different with different employers. One thing I've noticed that's been really interesting, now we're all doing so much more video conferencing, is how much more acceptable it is to have things going on in the background and distraction now and again. And actually, I think it's really refreshing. It's what real life is, especially if you normally work from home anyway. But it's definitely an extra challenging time. And just going back to your point about TV, the question is, should I feel bad about putting my kids in front of a DVD? I think you've kind of answered that already.
Yeah, and I think, again, behind me is our balanced play model, and the idea of a balanced play pyramid is the same, or it's a balanced play diet, if you like, is the same way that we balance kids' nutrition. And we wouldn't let them sit and eat chips and chocolate all the time. We wouldn't let them sort of be down here doing solitary, sedentary, passive screen time for hours on end. Now, reality is that we're probably doing a bit more of that than we're comfortable with. But as long as you're getting some of the kind of the superfoods, so the social, imaginative, creative, active play, then I think we need to give ourselves a bit of a break on that. But yeah, putting your kids in front of a DVD for a couple of hours to give you a couple of hours a day to give you the freedom to work, and if that's the routine that you get into and the kids understand that while the DVD is on they don't interrupt you, then that's a workable solution, as long as around that you've got active play and imaginative, you know, opportunities for imaginative activities. Excuse me. But it's also, I mean, screenplay can be, just because it's a screen, so DVD is fairly passive, but screenplay can be really active and can help kids access learning. And there's some great maths apps and great phonics apps and great science apps. So check out the Good App Guide for some ideas, but apps can really help kids keep their social skills going. You know, things like Minecraft, where they're interacting with their friends. That's still social. That's not just because there's a screen there doesn't mean it's bad. Obviously, we don't want them staring at a screen all day, every day, but you know, maybe don't demonize the technology. Just make sure the kids are using it positively to get in touch with their friends and to be creative and to do their homework and all that kind of stuff. And that's kind of, for me, that feels a lot more positive use of technology than being, oh my goodness, they're in front of a screen, that's bad, because there is, you know, limited options for outdoor play at the moment. So yeah, don't worry too much.
And as you say, it's about balance, isn't it? And yeah, making sure there's a bit of everything, which is really helpful. And staying on the subject of TV, another question is, should I ban the news, TV, radio? I'm worried that what they're picking up and that it's adding to their fears. Yeah, and again, depends on the age of the child and their interest in it. Older children may enjoy the news because they, again, it's that sense of agency. They know what they're hearing. The news can largely be trusted, and if it's on, you know, if it's on the BBC or whatever, and it's reputable journalism and they can trust that, they might feel that they are in control, they're informed, and that can help reduce anxieties. For younger children who might not understand the content or the context of the news, it can add anxiety. Very young children don't really have a sense of, they don't distinguish between reality and fantasy. So when they see something on a TV screen, it's in their living room. It doesn't matter if it's happening halfway around the world. What they see is in their living room, and that's as real to them as, you know, what's happening physically in their real world. So making sure that if they are watching the news, or if they catch you listening to it and they have questions, just make sure you're available to answer the questions honestly. And maybe, yeah, for younger kids, maybe you catch up with the news once they're in bed, because you don't want them, their imaginations running away with them and them creating some, you know, getting it out of perspective. That's sensible advice. Another question is, my kids fight all the time. How do I stop them, or at least encourage them to fight less? Okay, so this is a challenging one when we're all in the same house. And unless there is a massive discrepancy between ages and strengths and everything, or if it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, I would just try not to get involved. I would try and reward them when they're doing something nice together, reward them when they're being nice to each other or collaborating, give them some stuff to do where they both benefit from it working and then working together. So maybe that's cooking dinner, maybe it's tidying up a room. You don't need to get involved with who's done more or who's not helped or whatever. You let them get on with it. But if they both manage to do whatever it is that you've asked them to do, then they both get the reward. And it's that kind of helping them learn to cooperate, and they're really good skills. I mean, we as parents often jump in a little bit too early, and we end up with that helicopter parent where the kids refer everything up. Mum, she's taken this, Mum, he's done this, Mum, and you go in and you solve the problem, rather than if you weren't there, they would have to solve that problem themselves. And kids do generally have a sense of fairness, and they know when they're being mean. So there is a real benefit in helping them work that out for themselves and negotiate, learn those skills. So negotiation, compromise, communication, empathy, all of those skills they'll learn if you just take that step back and you kind of don't interfere unless somebody's in danger, or unless there is always a kind of an offender and a victim. If it is 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, let them get on with it, but don't engage with them, and you don't need to play games with them. You don't need to engage with them when they're being mean to each other because you don't like it. Take that step back, you do something else. When they can be nice, then they can get your attention and you can join in and we'll do something fun together. It takes quite a lot of resolve to do that, doesn't it? I think as a,
It does, yeah, especially when they're little.
parent, counting to 10, but no.
Yeah.
Interesting question here. I work from home and I'm homeschooling, but the holidays seem to be harder than when they have schoolwork to do. My daughter, 8 years old, seems to have lots of energy and is craving a lot of attention. We're taking her out once a day and she's talking to her friends. Of course, she refuses to do any schoolwork. Do you have any suggestions how we can exercise her mind, but it doesn't feel like schoolwork and it gives me time to finish off some work?
So I think one of the best ways of getting the kids involved in that learning and doing is cooking. So if she can help you prepare the meal, she can weigh out ingredients, she can measure volumes, all of that kind of stuff. That's numbers, literacy, vocab. Cooking is and it's a life skill as well. So, timing, temperature, all of those kind of things, really good for her to do that. What that doesn't do necessarily is give you the time away. So, but if you're doing stuff like that with her that stimulates her mind, whilst you're then working, maybe she could do some research for recipes or meals for the following day, and then she can learn to budget, she can write the shopping list, she can research how much they cost online, she can do those kind of activities, which keeps her, it's very relevant. So you don't get the kind of, well, why am I learning this feedback. So it's something that she can see is needed. Something she can get stuck into, really helps with maths and language skills and even the sort of online research, that kind of thing. So I'd suggest that would be a really good thing. Otherwise, a project, like I said earlier, a project so that she can be doing her work while you're doing your work, and she can sit across the table from you. And if she needs to ask you a question, as long as you're not on the phone or something, you can help her, but she's actively engaged in something. And that newspaper, creating her own newspaper or doing a project on anything that she's interested in, will give her that structure. And I think there's a project form on the Home Learning Hub on the Good Play Guide. So there's a project form, so you can sort of scope out a project, so you can look at the different elements to creating a project, so that there's all sorts of different learning opportunities within it. So those kind of things I would suggest are helpful in that. But at some point, she doesn't have to be gainfully engaged in sort of productive learning all of the time. So again, just maybe letting her get a bit bored and see what happens, because again, that is a skill, learning to listen to your internal framework and know what you like and make your own decisions about what you want to do, and just go, there's your bedroom, there's the toy cupboard, whatever, do what you like, and see what they do. And letting kids get bored is actually quite important, and hopefully and making sure they don't just reach for the screen or the tablet when they do. So see what they come up with when it's down to them.
Thank you. Penultimate question. My child is an only child and I'm really concerned about her getting lonely. She desperately wants to hug her friends and be with them. We're giving her hugs and she's speaking to her friends on the phone, but can we do more? We have to work also, so she can't get all our attention all the time.
I can't claim credit for this, but one of the ideas I've heard that I think has been lovely is to set up family friends or family members who she is close to and would want to give a hug to. And you can't give the physical hug, but she can have a teddy. She gives her teddy a hug, and the granny gives her teddy a hug, and that's kind of communicating the hug. But actually what you do then is the grandparent or aunt or uncle or family friend spends half an hour or an hour reading a story, doing sort of supervising the activities. So whether it's a virtual game of backgammon or something, or a game of cards, or a quiz that you do together and everybody makes up different questions, or story time, reading different stories, or helping with the homework if they've got learning to do. Doing it virtually through Skype, really great for older relatives who are self-isolating, really self-isolating, but great for the kids as well. And they get that connection in a much more positive way than than the kind of weekly call to granny to say, oh, how are you and how's school, and it's all a bit monosyllabic and a bit forced. If you've got a project that they're working on together, and maybe it links to the earlier question, you know, the granny is somebody who loves gardening, and maybe she can help the kids develop their gardening skills, and they can show her what they're planting or those kind of things. Getting that external family members involved digitally, but for set periods of time. So between 2 and 3 every day, you know, there's a Skype call to granny and she reads a story, or there's a Skype call to Uncle Bob and he's going to teach them about his work, those kind of things, or play a game with them. Those kind of opportunities can be really, really powerful. And I think if you're doing you're hugging and you're giving them an opportunity to get the comfort, you know, with you, and making sure you've got that physical contact and reassurance, then they will get past this, and those hugs, when they do come in person, will be all the more special. But I think that kind of quality interaction virtually is a good way, and the hugging the bear and passing the hug on via the Skype is that can be nice for younger kids.
Lovely, yeah, it's lovely. And when is lockdown going to be lifted? And our last question is about that, actually. And when lockdown is lifted, how should we help kids adapt to going back to some form of normality? And what if they're afraid of going out?
So this comes down to the anxiety issues that we're hoping to have avoided by doing some of the stuff we talked about already. But it will be a period of adjustment. And I think the way I understand it, lockdown will be lifted gradually. So there will be still a bit of anxiety around catching the virus and, you know, social interactions, and just making sure that kids have really got it drummed into them to, you know, wash their hands, you know, stay apart from people that aren't in the family, those kind of things, but making that sort of normal rather than scary for them, I think is important. And then in the run up, it's not going to happen overnight, so we're going to know when the schools are going back, and just making sure they get more into that routine. Maybe you do focus a bit more on the homeschooling the week before they go back to school. Make sure that they're talking to their friends on Skype and Zoom or whatever it is, and being able to communicate with their friends ready to get back to school. Maybe talk to them about what they want in their packed lunch, maybe talked about, you know, the fact they haven't worn the school uniform, check that it still fits them, those kind of fun preparation things. If you think about how it was when they first started school and some of the things you did to get them ready to start school, or the things that you do in September, you know, and they're ready to start a new class, think of it in those terms and put some of those actions into place. I think it should be okay. Kids are incredibly adaptable, and as long as they're not picking up too much of your anxiety and they're not too worried now, and if we can help them through this in a playful, positive way over the next few weeks, then hopefully they will get back into school relatively smoothly.
Brilliant, thank you. And I think, yeah, that's a really good point as well about, you know, being able to plan and prepare. It's not going to happen, you know, overnight. So that's really helpful. Thank you, Amanda. And for all your time today. It's been so helpful. I think lots of tips and really practical advice, and certainly quite a few things that I'll be taking away with me as well. Before we say goodbye though, you're hosting a 2-day virtual festival at the end of May called Play at Home Fest. I wondered if you could tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure, no, happy to. So one of the things that we do at the Good Play Guide is we go to family festivals, and we have these toy demo zones where kids come and play. Really great fun. It's gone down really well. And a lot of those festivals have been cancelled, understandably. And we thought it was such a shame, because the kids really enjoy that sense of fun and playing, and we've got a lot of our clients who have got toys and games that they want to showcase. So there's a lot of content online for kids around, you know, learning, virtual learning and stuff, but we just wanted to have some fun, and we wanted to give the nation something to look forward to. So the idea is that over the 2nd May bank holiday, 23rd, 24th of May, we are aiming to lift everybody's spirits with a 2-day virtual festival streamed through playatHomefest.com. with lots of different people doing lots of fun things. We're going for world record challenges. We've got when you register, it's a free ticket, but you can register for your ticket and you get a family wristband, so get that festival feel. We've got competitions. We're just trying to find the fun in what is a very challenging time for a lot of people, and hopefully give people a reason to smile. We're also going to be raising money for we're also going to be raising money for the COVID-19 appeal, so it's a good cause as well.
Fantastic, Amanda. It sounds absolutely brilliant. So I hope everyone goes and checks out playathomefest.com, and thank you again for your time today, Amanda. And also look out for Workingmums.co.uk's next webinar, which will be with Claire Cole, the founder of Movement for Mums, and we'll be focusing on physical and mental well-being for mums during lockdown. And in the meantime, everybody, keep well. See you soon.